What's going on, friends? This is the Year One Wrestling Podcast, the show that dives deep into the early stages and formation of your favorite professional wrestlers, bringing out their struggles, their fears, and most importantly, their most interesting stories. I'm your host, the King of Chaos, Logan Black. Thank you so much for checking us out on whatever platform you enjoy your podcast on. We are all about showing love here, so if you dig what you hear, or if you just feel like being awesome, show some love, hit the subscribe button, leave a review, tell a friend, help us get the word out on the show. It's been really dope to see all the support that I get for the show, whether it's tweets or posts or DMs or people just reaching out, regardless of what it is. I know the last couple of weeks we've had, some funny episodes with Nick Stapp and stuff that got a bit more serious with Tara Calloway. And it's just great to see how different people are connecting with different voices and just outright enjoying what I'm putting out here. So thank you guys so much. On to other important measures. I know that I posted about a week ago about a merch bundle that I was looking to sell off and for all the proceeds to go to the Marsha P. Johnson Institute. Literally posted about it at like 8 o'clock. By 8:45, the bundle was sold. I could not have been more thrilled about it. But people were reaching out to me and asking, hey, can I get in? And, it felt good and also kind of sucky to tell them, oh no, it's sold. So here's what I'm going to end up doing in regards to that. If you're looking to score some merch, if you're looking to get in on this deal and help out and be able to donate some money to the Institute, you certainly can. So what I'm going to do, partnering up with Joanna, my homegirl, who designs pretty much all the art that you see for the podcast and for my merch at this point as well, we're going to be putting together a merchandise raffle. Buy-ins for it are $10 a piece. You guys send us the $10. And we're going to do a drawing. We've compiled a whole bunch of stuff, whether it be my personal merch, t-shirts, 8x10s, lucha masks, action figures, autographs. Joanna's sending a bunch of her art. She's got these awesome charms that she had personally made of her artwork. We're just looking to be getting rid of all of this stuff. And it's going to go to you. So with that said, make sure to check out mine or her social media. That should have most of the details. And if you need any other clarification or you're looking to immediately throw that cash to the charity, please, please, please shoot either of us a direct message on any of our social media. Let's start talking about this week's guest, Cole Radrick. The guy's been making a pretty strong name for himself in some of the top independents in the United States. And he's done this in a fairly short amount of time. I believe he said he's only been wrestling for about 5 years now. And, he's one of those guys who, if you know independent wrestling, you know Cole Radrick. I know it's kind of taboo for wrestlers to be like, oh, I'm a fan of this other contemporary of mine. I think that shit is dumb. I think that we should be praising each other if we appreciate each other's work. Like, I don't know, man. Do you think, like, the singer from, like, Imagine Dragons is like, oh, I can't tell Dave Grohl that I'm a fan of his, or vice versa? Like, whatever, like, who cares? Like, wrestling is so weird like that, where, like, you can't tell people that you appreciate their artistic output. Screw that. I was a fan of Cole Radrick from, like, the first second that I saw this kid hyping up his own stuff. He was a young kid who just you could just see the hunger and love of wrestling in his eyes every time he stepped in the ring. Wasn't necessarily following anybody's rules on how to get there. He looked like a 15-year-old kid who just, like, wanted to do things his way and was getting out there and working all the time. I think that's what caught my eye the most, was the fact that I just saw his name mentioned over and over and over again. And you come to realize, and he mentions it in the interview, Cole wrestled nearly 200 matches in his first 2 years, which to me is insane. Because, like, first of all, my first year I wrestled maybe 10 times. I don't know, because all I did was those school shows. But Cole was like, right off the bat, I'm going to hustle. I'm going to hustle hard. And it still holds true to this day. The dude is still hustling. He's still getting out there. His name is all over the place. He is working consistently, or was before the pandemic. And I said when I was hyping up this podcast last week that anybody who's within their first couple of years of wrestling, I mean, frankly, anyone should be listening to this because it's a dope interview. But specifically, if you're a wrestler in like your first 3 years of the business, you need to listen to this, because Cole, his story, everything that he talks about comes from a place of somebody who just wants it. And that comes out, again, you don't wrestle 200 times in your first 2 years without really wanting it, without putting that time in, without not giving a damn if you run down the tires or the miles and everything on your car and just kind of destroy your social life. The dude put it all out there, and it's starting to pay off for him, and that's super awesome to see. Certainly doesn't hurt that he's beyond talented in the ring and such a great dude. Was really stoked to have had him on the podcast, so let's take a listen in. Cole Radrick on the Year One Wrestling Podcast. Well, Cole, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. That's a dope-ass intro. I'm fucking excited to put that out there. So let's just get started right with your wrestling career. Did you have any background in wrestling prior to getting your pro wrestling training?
Yeah, I started off as an amateur wrestler. I first watched pro wrestling in 2002, and I loved it. I told my dad, "Hey, I want to be a wrestler." Well, he thought I was talking about amateur wrestling, so he took me to an amateur wrestling practice. First thing I did when I walked through the doors, which is every amateur wrestling, pro wrestling fan would do, is I looked around and I saw the wrestling match. I was like, "Where's the ropes at? I want to jump off and do cool stuff." What? So I started learning wrestling. Then I started becoming a fan of MMA. So I did a little bit of jiu-jitsu. I did a little bit of kickboxing. Not enough to where I could whip somebody's ass, but enough to learn some cool shit. And I wrestled from the time I was probably 6 until the time I was 16. So basically, once I started being able to train to be a pro wrestler, I just kind of gave up on amateur wrestling and dove headfirst in the world of pro wrestling.
Yeah, that's a response I literally get from everyone on here with a background in amateur stuff. Is oh, I showed up and I wondered where the ropes were. when you hopped in 2002 with your first experiences with pro wrestling and
yeah.
As a fan, who are the wrestlers that you were a fan of?
I really, really loved Rikishi. Rikishi was the dude. Rikishi was the man. I loved Rey Mysterio. Kurt Angle is forever my favorite. Jericho, Christian had a really good run then. William Regal was really good around that time. That was his feud with Edge was really good. I enjoyed it. Where centered around the brass knuckles and him getting his nose broke. So all those wrestlers, I loved the technicality of William Regal. I loved Rey Mysterio's high flying. I loved Rikishi's crowd work. And I didn't understand what each of those were until I started being able to train to be a wrestler. And then it's oh, that's cool. I appreciated this about them. You know what I mean?
Certainly. I've been doing a deep dive into NWA stuff from the late 80s. And man, when Keish was young and really in his athletic prime, yo, that motherfucker could work his ass off.
Oh my God, he was crazy. Oh, he was so good.
Yeah, that era of the Samoans is just goddamn, they're a special breed.
And everybody wonders why they all get super pushes, and it's because they're fucking good. I promise you. It's a dynasty for a reason. It's not because they're bad. I promise. Those fuckers can go.
Where did you start when you actually did decide to hop into the world of pro wrestling?
I technically trained at 2 different schools. When I was 12, I found out there was an independent wrestling company that ran in my town called ICW, and it was ran by this guy. We're just going to call him Jay for short. And I was 12. I backyard wrestled, so I made crappy highlight videos on Windows Movie Maker of me in the backyard. And I started showing up to a show, and I just started filming it, and I would make a highlight reel and post it to YouTube or whatever. And I was sitting in the crowd while doing this, and one show he comes up to me, and mind you, these shows are drawing 50 or less people. It was I hate to use the term because I think all indies are all right. I think every indie company serves its purpose, but it was a shindy company. And I was there kind of watching it, whatever. And he came up to me. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was explaining, I'm filming, I edit, do all this. He's like, "Well, if you want to, you could start filming around the shows." Started doing that. And I explained to him one show that, my dreams to be a professional wrestler. And he's, this was about a year or two later, about when I was 14, he's like, or when I was 13, he's like, you could start helping set up the ring. So I started helping set up the ring and he would always tell me, if there's extra time you can get in the ring and work out, we'll show you a couple of new tricks. From the time I was 13 to the time I was 15, I set up the ring every show, sometimes by myself, never got in once. And, during that time, he started having me be a commentator, which I did it over a live mic. So the entire arena could hear me. And I felt so dumb because there'd be times where like somebody has a weapon. I'd be like, oh God, he has a weapon. And the referee's like down, or the referee's like distracted by a manager. And it's like, if the referee has like common sense, he's going to hear me.
Oh, dude, that's the Johnny Rods method.
Yeah.
Johnny would seriously be there on the microphone. Oh, he's good. He's going to hit him with it. And the referee has to act stupid. It was always, everyone hated it. But like, people did it.
Yeah. And like, that was my job. That I did ring announcing and that I did refereeing. And I was like, and every time I was just like, man, I just want to get in the ring. I just want to do this. I just want to do that. Well, eventually, my 16th birthday comes around, and the guy was telling me, it's $500 to train to be a professional wrestler. Like, that's how much it costs. Well, my dad gave me the option when I was 16. I either get $500 or I get, a 16th birthday party. And I was like, well, I want $500. I can chase my dream, be a wrestler. The guy shows up to my house on my 16th birthday with a 4-year contract. And takes my $500, has me sign the contract, everything, right? This contract said for the first year, I'm only training with him. If I wrestle anywhere, it's only with him. Second year, he controls my bookings, and he gets like a third or a quarter of whatever my rate is. He negotiates my price. Like, he's like basically my agent. Third year, I could get my own bookings, but he got a cut of it. And then every show that he makes is mandatory, and he also reserves the right to pull me from any show. Fourth year was I could get my own bookings. He didn't take a cut, but every year that every show that he has comes first. I'm 16. I'm an idiot, and I'm an idiot to this day, mind you. But I'm even more of an idiot, and I'm like, oh, this is my way into wrestling. Like, of course I'll sign this contract. Sign the contract, whatever. First time we're going to go train, he tells me show up at this address. I'm thinking it's a building, it's something. It takes me to the middle of nowhere, takes me down this gravel road I've never been to before, and I see that this dude's living in a trailer, and his ring is set up outside of the trailer. The ropes are hanging down. There's leaves all over the canvas. And I was like, oh, this is my dream. This is everything I've ever hoped for. Ended up training with him like 4 times, and then eventually, like, basically never heard from the guy. Like, there's always something that came up, or like times we couldn't work out together, like times would never work for either one of us, and ended up just basically pissed away $500. Got fat, hated wrestling for like 6 months, told myself I didn't want to be a wrestler anyways. I was going to be, this or that. And then I went to a show called Infinity Pro in Bloomington, Indiana, ran by Donnie Tsunami. And through there, I met Michael Guest, who runs New Wave Pro out of Terre Haute, Indiana. And through them meeting, I got hooked up with Mikey. And, I started training in December of 2014. And then I at New Wave Pro Wrestling Academy, and I graduated April 27th of 2015.
I'm just trying to like wrap my head around. I mean, it makes sense to me because I mean, there's certainly like a generation gap between you and I. You breaking in, like you're just talking about, that's almost 10 years past when I started. So like
that's crazy.
I just recognize that like I'm an old douchebag that like broke into like a different. No, like I've embraced it, especially like now with the quarantine. Like I'm an old douchebag. My body's falling apart, but like it was a different generation of guys who were training people and a different generation of guys in wrestling schools. So like I never signed a contract like that with Johnny, but Johnny also had like a stranglehold on his guys. But there were so many people, and like to this day there are with a lot of these old school guys who put that down in like their training contracts of just like the first contract you sign, you owe me so and so amount of like your first few years. I'll never forget and like fuck it, I don't care about putting it out there. IWF, which is a Jersey training center out here, the trainer is a guy by the name of Kevin Knight, who's a damn good trainer. Like he's trained a lot of really good talent. I know Darren Young was his prize student. He's put plenty of guys on TV, so he's not like a shit promoter. But his contracts, because I saw his contract, I think I still have them somewhere because someone gave them to me. Literally said like a certain percent of your first contract signed, for the first whatever number of years is due to me, which I think is just such an awful fucking thing. And I get that was like the way that shit was handled, years back, but goddamn.
Yeah, like that's kind of fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, just like you're taking it, especially, I mean, in your case specifically, because you were 16 years old, like that should be arrestable, motherfucker. Like that is taking advantage of somebody to like no end. But I'm glad to hear that you were able to get past all that and finally, find a spot that was better for you.
I mean, it wasn't bad. Like the guy never did nothing wrong. Like he was cool. Like he was kind of corny-ish, but like I think he kind of embraced it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
No, there's plenty like that.
He kind of lived it. He was enjoying it. But it kind of sucked too, because like for that 6-month period, I was like, man, I don't want to wrestle anymore. Like this is dumb. Like it was a dumb dream to have. And then like I went to see Infinity Pro and I fell in love with the lights. Like they had cool, like it was a nice lit ring. It was a dark arena. Like it looked really cool. The production was really amazing. And I was like, damn, like this is what I want to be a part of. You know what I mean?
Now that makes a huge difference in terms of, how people handle themselves as trainers and how places handle themselves as promotions.
Yeah, exactly. It showed me like, oh, there's right and there's wrong. Okay, so there's two ways about doing this. I thought it was just like one blanket like statement on how wrestling is. I was like, damn, I kind of got taken for a fool, and now I'm like, oh, okay, so this is how things work sometimes.
Right. Well, off the bat, when you don't have any like background in any of this, you don't know any better. So like everything's a clean slate. People can take advantage of you easily because you don't know that you're being taken advantage of. Like, again, I put this out here multiple times, but Johnny charged me a certain amount of money to train there. And other people at his school, he charged more, he charged less, like all depending on like what kind of money he needed at the time. Yeah. But like when there's like $1,000 difference between you and what other people are paying, like that's insane. Like I talked to CPA on here last week, Nick Stapp, and he had joined up with Johnny's and stayed there for a short amount of time, but he paid like $1,000 less than I did.
Really?
Yeah,
that's insane.
And I know a dude who paid more than $3,000 more than I did.
$3,000 more?
He'd let like women train there for free if he thought that they'd make him money. And like I said, Nick paid like $1,500. So
that's insane.
It's fucking carnies, bro. That old school shit.
Like New Wave Pro took care of me. I don't know what it is now. It may have changed, but at first it was a $25 tryout fee, and then it was like $15 for like training. Like that was all it was. Like it was super affordable. And I mean, like, okay, they don't have like a name value to it, but it was good enough for me to get trained and then do seminars and all these other things, like show up and help out, maybe be able to learn something. Like, but it was good enough to give me a solid base. I learned the basics. I didn't learn nothing fancy. I learned how to be a wrestler, and then I learned the basics of wrestling, and then I was able to go out and practice it, and do what I needed to do to learn how to be a professional wrestler.
No, certainly. Could you go into some detail on I want to say your first day training at that spot, but I'd like to at least cycle back and talk about the first day training with that dude in the backyard with his trailer.
Side yard of his trailer, actually, believe it or not, side yard. So we went out there so first day training, so we'll go to my first school. First day of training there, my dad dropped me off. He's like, what the fuck are you getting into? Whatever, and like left. And he was, and so me and the guy, we went to the side yard, whatever, and he was teaching me how to do bumps and like teaching me how to do front bumps, and then like gave me suplexes and stuff. And I kind of caught on to it, because I just, you watch so much, you kind of like understand, like once you get down the first time, you kind of start to understand it. So after the first day, I had like bumps down pretty all right. Then like the second, and then we learned how to run the ropes. So I just basically ran the ropes a million times back and forth, crisscross, everything. And then like by the third or fourth day training there, he had me like having practice matches with the broom. And I was like, dude, I don't know anything. And he's like, oh, well, you're not going to finish training until you can have a 15-minute practice match with this, or a 10-minute practice match with this broom. And I was like, my fifth day in training, I was like, I'm pretty sure, he taught me how to do a suplex, a body slam, arm drag, and we learned a little bit of chaining. And he taught me a hip toss. And like he was trying to have me have this like 10-minute practice match with a broom, and I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here.
Literally working a broom.
Yeah, literally he had me work a broom, and I was like, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do with the broom. Like now, now it'd be fun to like it'd be a fun challenge to try and wrestle a broom. You know what I mean? Like that's a fun challenge now because I'm a little bit more experienced. I know a little bit things I could do. Like it's a little bit goofy. And then New Wave Pro, I don't like, yay concussions, but like I don't really remember like, too many details. I remember going in there like being really rusty, but like I got the bumps down pretty well. I got running the ropes down pretty back. Like I kind of, it's like a bicycle almost. You kind of remember how to do things. I started doing body slams. I kind of started catching on really quick because it was training like every Sunday for only 5 months, and there's like maybe like I probably missed about 4 of them, and that's because they were doing like roofing stuff and they wouldn't train. But I caught on to things pretty quickly. Like I kind of learned the basics of everything. Of course, I learned how to throw a super kick and slap my leg because I'm a professional wrestler. Did all that, and like the first day, it's kind of like bumps, running the ropes, understanding like, I learned the international first day. That's what I do remember, is because it was like about a 5-hour training session. We were just learning stuff. And there's a couple of the wrestlers there that, used to work for the same guy, and they remembered who I was. And, like I wrestled in the backyard. Like I've thrown people in suplexes, and I probably did it wrong, but I kind of still had like, you kind of understand, you hook on the left side, you grab with the right hand, you understand the motion. So whenever you do learn it the proper way, it's kind of easier to like pick up on it. You know what I mean?
No, certainly. That makes perfect sense.
Like, and I mean, I might sound like an idiot, and I probably fucking do if I'm being honest, but I did say earlier in this podcast, I was an idiot then. I'm definitely an idiot now. But yeah, so I kind of just like learning and understanding and picking things up, and yeah.
No, I mean, that makes perfect sense, changing things up and figuring everything out again. It really is like riding a bike. Once you started up with New Wave, what were your goals? Because I imagine having your spirit crushed on wrestling, like any goals that you had were pretty much done over at that other spot. But once you hit New Wave and your love of wrestling was invigorated, what were your goals?
Honestly, at first, I just wanted to wrestle. Like, that was it, period. I just wanted to wrestle. I didn't care how, where, why, when. Like, if I could wrestle, that's all I wanted to do. I kind of shot myself in the foot. I wrestled like 4 matches with New Wave. They never mentioned anything about not taking bookings for anybody else. They never mentioned that during training. So I reached out to a couple people, or actually two people reached out to me, Donnie Simpson or Hillbilly Jed, who's like a local staple. Like, he's been around forever. He's like super knowledgeable, super great to everybody. He makes awesome gear. Then I had a guy named Donnie Idol, it was a guy named Dave Christian at the time, who was the owner of Emerge Wrestling, now ran by Donnie Idol and Ricky Ruckus. They both hit me up the same day and asked me if I was available to work their shows. And this is in, I believe, June of the same year. And I was like my 3rd match ever. It was in my hometown. I remember getting back to the locker room. I have 2 texts from these 2 guys, and I didn't tell anybody, but I was like, yeah, I'll take the bookings. Which on my end, I should have had the courtesy to go up to Mikey and Chris and be like, hey, these people hit me up, blah, blah, blah. They weren't happy that I took the bookings, obviously. They didn't, but at the same time, like, Mikey had a little bit of hand in training in me, but the guy that trained me was Blake Reed and Ollie Tharp, and they both told me I was okay to go and train or go and wrestle elsewhere. So it's like owner of the company, but the guys that trained me, it was like back and forth. Ended up going and wrestling. They told me, if I go to the show, they're not going to have me back, blah, blah, blah. End up going to wrestling for Emerge and then wrestling a whole bunch of different places. Sorry, tangent, but
No.
My goals in wrestling were I just wanted to wrestle as much as possible. I wanted to travel as much as possible. Like, I was kind of a loser kid that kind of listened to punk music in a high school where everybody listened to country. And I just wanted to be as far away from my hometown as possible. Go see as many different places as possible, wrestle as many different companies as possible. I got my one goal from the day I started wrestling is I just want to wrestle overseas. Like, I guess that would be like the big goal. I want to wrestle overseas. I just want to do what I love to do best.
I'll tell you what, man, you said tangent, but at the same time, like, I think all that context is super important to understanding you and your drive and exactly where, where you're coming from and where you're going. I think all that is super important. And the truth is, like, I just want to wrestle is a perfect goal to have.
Yeah. Like, and like people can say whatever I'm about to say, and like this isn't me burying anybody, but there are some people that wrestle at New Wave, and they're like, they're 40-mile guys. They wrestle one place or 2 places close by, and I kind of saw that, and I understood it because like I was lucky enough to have friends that were traveling and were like getting after it, and I didn't want to be that guy that just wrestled the same 6 towns in the same state. Like, I wanted to travel. I wanted to go out and do everything. And that's why when they were like, oh, we don't want you to wrestle for this other company, And mind you, they're cool now. Like it wasn't anything personal between companies. It wasn't like a battle. It was just because like it was like a courtesy thing I should have given them, and that's my fuck up. But like I didn't want to be a guy that just wrestled the same 6 shows. I wanted to travel. I wanted to go experience things. I wanted to get better. I wanted to wrestle people I've never met. I like that challenge of like meeting a guy for the first time. Like, hey, how you doing? You know, my name's Cole. Your name's whatever. Like, okay, now we just met. I don't know your style. You don't know mine. Let's make art. And like, that's amazing to me, is the challenge of making art every single time that you can. So like, that's why my goal was I want to travel as much as possible, because I want new landscapes. I want new scenery to paint. Like I would need a different canvas.
That might be the most poetic thing that I've heard on this podcast so far. Honestly, man, like I'm legitimately going to take that fucking quote, and that's going to be the lead in for everything that I do on this. That's beautiful. So I'll just say that off the bat. That was fucking awesome. Who are the people that were helping you out at the time at New Wave?
Like when I first started.
Yeah.
So whenever I wrestled for the other company, I kind of got ditched by New Wave. We kind of had a falling out. But like Ollie Tharp was one of the guys that trained me that was super cool to me all the time. Like he watched me from that Shindy company literally when I was like 8 years old. He remembered me. He remembers me in the crowd. And he's watched me grow into like the guy I am today, and like I owe a lot to him, because like every time I see him, it's like we never stop seeing each other. We pick up right where we left off. Like he's always good for advice. He's a good freaking dude, and he's funny as hell too. And but like he was like the main guy on New Wave, and now like I'm cool with New Wave. I wrestle there all the time. I actually booked Spencer shows, which we were supposed to get you out for, and sadly never got something figured out. But now I run my own company. We can work that out later.
Yes, I'd love to.
But yeah, I remember that was supposed to happen. I had such a good idea too. But I'm cool with them now. Like, but Ollie was like the real guy from there that helped me out a lot. But whenever I got kicked out of New Wave, like guys like Jonathan Wolf, Joey Owens, TJ Kemp, Hillbilly Jed, Nicky Mariani, Donnie Idol, Ricky Ruckett, or Donnie Idol, Trip Cassidy helped me out a lot. Trip helped me like travel. Like initially he helped me get me to Florida and helped me get to Tennessee and helped me get to Georgia for AWE. Kerry Awful, Nick Iggy, they both helped me out a lot. Like I was really lucky, to get exposed to a lot of people that were like willing to help out somebody that didn't really belong anywhere. Sean Kemp is another one. Sean Kemp helped me out a lot. Like him and Jonathan are like my brothers. Sage Phillips was a guy that me and him broke in October. I broke in April. Like I have like 6 months on him, but like me and him have always like, we're a tag team. Like we've always helped each other get on shows. We're always traveling together. Like if he has a show and I don't have anything and he needs somebody to ride with, I hop in with him and he does the same for me. Like I have a lot of people around me that love growing and like help me grow as well, which I think is super important, because you got to surround yourself by like people that help motivate you to be better.
Absolutely. I think finding people around you that not only motivate you to be better, but also push you to grow and are creating a positive environment, which like I'm a huge fucking fan of. Because if you could have people who are just, kind of forcing you to get better, but if they're just nothing but negativity, that shit fucking stays with you. And I honestly, I feel like that's something that, kind of hindered my growth, especially early on, is that I surrounded myself with so many negative people and didn't know any better that, I was a fucking shindy guy for the first fucking 6 years. And it took me forever to actually, realize the kind of mistakes you make. So that's super important. I'm totally in agreement with you. Beyond the fact that, the Carnies are, the dopest human beings.
Greatest humans ever.
Oh, my God. I fucking, lovely, lovely human beings. And you mentioned Jonathan Wolf. He's a dude where, I have, my DVD distributor who actually sponsors the show and just sends me random DVDs every month. All the Midwest stuff that I've seen Jonathan Wolf on, fucking A, that kid is good.
Dude, he's okay, so everybody's biggest thing about him is his body, whatever. But the dude does stuff that I can't fucking do. And I work out 5 days a week. I do agility, I jump. And I'm don't get me wrong, white men can't jump. But Jonathan goes fucking in. He's doing springboard, reverse 450, Phoenix splashes. He's doing crazy shit that I could never do. And he's so naturally talented. It's insane. And he's a third generation wrestler. I think he's the only third generation wrestler in the state of Indiana.
Really? That's pretty
Yeah.
fucking dope.
His dad is Joey Kid Owens, who was like very prominent in IWA in like the '06 to like '08, I believe. And his dad is his grandpa's Don Basher, who runs WCWO, which is the longest weekly wrestling company in the state of Indiana. He's able to go to a wrestling ring anytime he wants. Like, he's so fucking good. He's crazy good.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I like to try and keep up with like the different scenes of wrestling because it's like fucking you're a punk, man. It's like a fucking scene, man.
Exactly.
Certain bands, certain people exist in certain scenes. They'll make their appearances elsewhere, but check out what that scene is because you're gonna see something a bit under the radar. Like, my guy sent me. It was in IWA Mid South. It was one of the tournaments they run, and like, I was looking at it, I was like, oh, you're on it, fucking Hero's on it, Callahan, like, these all dudes who I love to fucking watch.
TPI 2016.
Yeah, that's the one. And then fucking Jonathan Wolf's on there having a fucking banger. It's like, yo, okay, this is that under the radar band that fucking no one has seen. Well, at least I hadn't seen because I'm not of that scene or wasn't exposed to it. And then boom, it's like, all right, I need more of this shit.
Yeah.
So I've thrown in the new stuff.
2016, 2017 IWA was insane because you had me, you had Jonathan Wolf, you had Teddy King, you had Mance Warner. Like, when Mance first started,
right.
Like, you had all these guys. Like, Matt Cage was still there, Monix, Eye Candy Elliott. Like, there's so much good content from IWA from 2016 to 2017. Like, I think, like, in 10 years, and like, if people ever go through like the the independent wrestling .tv app and they just look at like that era of IWA, I think people are going to be talking about it from a while from now. Like, I hope so, at least. I felt like it was such like a new blood but old school. Like, Reed and Murdoch were still there, Nick Depp was still there. Like, there's so much good talent that came through there. Like, OI4K, Zachary Wentz, Desmond Xavier, Trey Miguel. Like, all those dudes were there. Like, it was such a good time for IWA. So, like, that's when you talk about scenes, like, that's a scene that I'm getting into, like, 2006, like Tennessee, like, not carry off, but like, I'm getting into like that scene right now. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no. So I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine where you could find the trendsetters of indie wrestling, the trendsetters that like influence the big leagues. Because again, I've been like watching a ton because I have a ton in my collection of like Northeast indies from like 2002 to like 2006, 2007. It's a lot of the Ring of Honor stuff because that's, primarily we're a Northeast company, but still a lot of what was going on and like Homicide, Red, the SATs, all these dudes who like legit, like at this point you look back and you're like, oh yeah, like this is what wrestling is now compared to like where, the West Coast, I think right now is what's going to influence wrestling in 10 years. I think the Midwest is what we're seeing now, so to speak. From like that era, it was 2007, like you said, through maybe like 2012, and then New England has been picking it up from here. It's insane how the influence there has just taken a hold of, what the mainstream wrestling is. Because I always bring this up, especially to like younger dudes, because like, I don't know how far back your fandom goes, especially now, because I'm sure you've watched a ton of stuff, but like WWE in 2002, 2003, you weren't seeing any of that shit.
No.
It was everybody was 6'2", 6'3", at least 220 pounds of like straight up gas. It was huge. Yep. You didn't see any of that shit. And then boom, it fucking switches like almost overnight, even though like this scene has been bubbling up for so many years.
Yeah, like it was crazy because like still like all the guys on top in like that era is still Rock, Austin, Triple H. They're still put like Brock comes in, but Brock's, jacked and gassed to the gills. Like it's not all natural. Like those are still the top guys in that period. They bring back Goldberg and they bring back Hogan and they bring back like Nash and Hall. It's like, man, like all these dudes are just gassed up and like Scott Steiner was another one who's a little bit shorter. Scott Steiner's a fucking man, I might add.
Yeah.
Scott Steiner's in it too, and it's just crazy.
Kurt
like
Angle
now,
was the smallest person of that era, and that's insane to think about.
Kurt Angle's the smallest person. Like that's it. Like Cena comes in and Cena gets that good little run, but like other than that, like there wasn't really anybody else. Like Edge wasn't a main guy till like 2016, 2005, like, or not. What did I say? 2016, 2006.
Right.
New Year's Revolution. He wins the belt. I'm so dumb.
No. I couldn't give you any of these dates.
Like the business changed overnight, and now it's like the smaller guy, but it's more like I appreciate like it's now about the skill. You know what I mean? Like there's skills, and then like obviously you have to look the part, you have to act the part, you got to be the part. But like you see so many people like showing off like what they can do in the ring instead of just punch, kick, heel, like big juiced up guy that can't barely move anymore.
It's art. Like the art is being respected right now as opposed to like, I mean, not to say that the guys, at that point weren't making art. They certainly were, but it was very much about, I compare it to like pure like painting, like selling a painting that like somebody spent, months creating and selling a print. Whereas like that print is beautiful. It's art. It was created and it took time, but like you could put that out every single week. It could be the same exact thing. Whereas, that one thing is unique. That one experience at that show is unique as opposed to like, everybody giving their greatest hits, in 5 minutes on a TV match.
And it just sucks because like I love wrestling, and like going back to earlier when I was being a poet, I love art. Like I love different things. Like freaking Sean Flair was one of the best matches in a long ass time because there was emotion to it. It was different. It was a goodbye. Like it was the perfect send off of a legend. He gives everything he has, and he's still willing to stand and face the end. You know what I mean?
Oh like, yeah, dude. It's like I get it.
that's fucking original art. Like that's that's what you need to have in the world, and there's not enough of that. And now you're seeing it where it's wrestling almost freaking the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse. Is that professional wrestling standard? No, but like storytelling wise, it's perfect. Like Firefly Funhouse is the greatest storytelling thing I've ever seen in my life. Am I an idiot? Probably, yes. Am I probably wrong? Maybe, but that's also my fucking opinion. Like,
no, it was brilliant. There's no other way. I personally don't think there's any other way to look at that match besides it just being brilliant. I had said it on here. I think it was last week's episode or the episode before, whenever Mania had finished up, that like the best thing about it and the reason why it's 100% like art above all else is that after that match, all the talk wasn't about the match necessarily. It wasn't even about like Cena or Bray. It was about what did this symbolize? What did this mean? What was that? That's fucking art, man. Like that's literally what art critics sit there and do and put together, and how people look back on shit hundreds of years old and fucking do that shit. That is art.
It's crazy, man. Like it's insane, and it's the best thing ever. Like professional wrestling is amazing. Like I value art over everything. I value art over money. I enjoy the aspect of making art, and that's what professional wrestling is at its purest form. It's art. It's performance art. It's violent theater.
Violent theater. I fucking love it, man. I'm assuming your first gimmick breaking in was still Cole Radrick, or did you have something else?
Yeah, it was Cole Radrick. Like I had a couple different ideas that I wanted to do. And my original idea, I wanted to be the bravest warrior, which is absolutely obviously the exact opposite of the bravest warrior. Like I wanted to go to the top rope, be scared, climb all the way down to the bottom, still too high up, and then just get on the mat and just belly flop and like die essentially. And that was the original gimmick, but it was like, gosh, what was it? I was the last true fighter, Cole Radrick. I was the last person fighting for what he believed in and fighting in the idea that dreams deserve to exist, and it was just dumb. But I think everybody's first gimmick should be dumb. I think if you don't change your gimmick over time, and I guess I'm probably the most like different nickname guy you probably will ever have. I've had 1,000, but like I understand like that was needed at the time because it was a good learning process, and I was the last true fighter. Then I was The Cure. Then I was Fight or Die. And I had a whole bunch of nicknames. And eventually I became 6 feet tall, and I was Andre the Giant Jr.
Yeah, I fucking love that one.
I miss it every day. Every day.
That was one of my favorites, the way that you ran social media with that. That's, I mean, jump in once I put you over later about how dope you are on social media, but I digress.
Let's be honest.
No, dude, I think you're one of the guys who like legitimately gets it and it has gotten it for so long. Whereas like, a lot of people still don't get it. Myself included. I've yet to find my fucking Twitter brand. I'm all over the fucking place, but it really is. It's a fucking skill. I have so much fucking credit to. Let's go into your first wrestling match. Do you have any memories of it? I know you mentioned concussions.
Oh, God.
I'm right there with you, but I want to talk about that first match because everyone's got a good first match story.
Oh, God. It's horrible.
Yeah, go for it.
Gosh, give me like a second to remember this entire weekend.
Go for it, man. Take your time.
So let's just start off with the basics. The Friday night. Okay, so my first match was on a Sunday. Friday night was I took a Hornet race car, which is basically like think of a Chevy Cavalier or like a small 4-wheel drive or front wheel drive small car that you strip out, essentially take all the seats out, put a racing seat in it, put a racing fuel cell in it, you kind of strip it down, put a roll cage, then you just take it dirt track racing. I did that for the first time ever, and then I ended up flipping my race car like 8 times on a Friday night in the main event, in the feature race. I was like in 3rd place, and then I kind of went high on a turn trying to pass around the guy that was in 2nd. Got my right rear wheel over the bank, and it just ate me up, and I ended up flipping over. Flipped my car 6, 7, maybe 8 times. Got out perfectly fine. The next day,
Jesus fucking Christ! I'm just like, dude, my jaw's on the fucking ground right now.
The next day, that Saturday, I went to my junior prom, and then that Sunday in the afternoon at like 1 or 2, I made my professional wrestling debut at a private show for a kid's like 10th birthday party. There were 12 kids, like 8 adults. The kid, like when you made the entrance, the kids were basically in the bleachers on the entrance left side, like on the entrance side, like not on the actual side of the ring, but like on the side that you come out. So it's kind of like you basically should come out and make a straight left-hand turn, and, high five them. Of course, me being so amped up, I ran out of the entranceway and I went to the adults and like played up to them, and they couldn't give 2 fucks less. And I'm like trying to hype up these adults. So I slide in the ring. And I get in the ring, and whoever the ref was looked at me and goes, "You're a fucking idiot. You didn't even say hi to the kids. You didn't try to pump them up. Like, you're the only babyface in this match. You just basically, like, didn't say nothing to the kids. You didn't say a word. Like, you didn't." I was like, yeah, I'm an idiot. And I ended up wrestling 2 guys. Both of them don't wrestle anymore, actually. One was TJ Fantastic, and the other one was a guy named Spencer Wallace. And, it was an all right match. I kind of just got beat up for the most part. I think the biggest thing I had was a super kick to the knee and like 3 punches. And that was about it. That was my wrestling debut. It was like, I was in the match. It was like a 3-way elimination match. And I was in it for like 2 minutes. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Of course, I had baggy shorts from Lucha. Like, I thought I was a man. I thought it was super fucking cool. I bought wrist tape. And then, like, I came home with my chest out. I was like, I'm a motherfucking professional wrestler, Dad. My dad looked at me and he's like, oh, shit. He's like, all right, congratulations. You're living the dream. Woo.
He didn't quite share your enthusiasm?
Oh, no, he was happy for me, obviously. Like, my dad's always been super supportive. Like, he doesn't get it, but he understands it. You know what I mean?
Completely. But,
yeah, he's just like, congratulations. Have your fucking, take your trophy.
So now you've had your first match, you've learned from that, and you're continuing to work and you're hustling. Like, that's also something I'd like to get into at some point. But when does your first road trip happen? Who's in it with you? Where'd you go? What stories you have from it?
Are we talking road trip like out of Indiana?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know how big Indiana is. So like
I can go like 2 hours south is one of them, and then that's like lower Indiana. That's IWA. And then if we were talking out of state, it's Georgia.
You know what? Whatever one you feel is a better story.
Probably Tennessee. Probably in the IWA, if we're being honest here.
Go for it.
So I get booked for IWA. My buddy Chris is a ring announcer for them. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this with you. Like he's like, I got you booked for it. So I'm like, all right. So we pick him up. I think it's on a Thursday night, if I'm mistaken. Maybe a Friday. I don't remember. I think, actually, I'm going to say Friday. I had just turned 18, mind you. Keep this in mind. So we go down. I wrestle. I do a battle royal, and I wrestle JC Rotten, Ian's kid. Whatever, get beat up. Not like bad. Like JC always take care of me, but IWA they wrestle a little bit snug, a little bit more snug and stuff. So like I get beat up. It was a lot of fun. And my buddy Chris looks at me and he goes, "Hey man, do you want to go to a strip club?" And I was like, "Well, I'm 18. Like strip clubs are 21 in my head." I was like, "I'm 18. Strip clubs are 21, so I won't be able to. But like, that'd be cool if we could." He goes, "Oh no, there's a strip club in Louisville that we can go to, and you only have to be 18." I'm like, "Well, fuck it. All right. Who doesn't like tits? Like, let's go." Like, I'm 18 and I'm dumb. Like, So we go to the strip club and it's like 11 o'clock. In my head, I'm like, okay, we'll be home by 1. We'll stay here for 30 minutes. We'll leave. I drop like $50 into the strip club within like 10 minutes. So we do the strip club and then I'm ready to go. Like, I'm tired. I'm 18. I don't stay up late. I don't play video. I'm kind of lame. I kind of go to bed, whatever. And he keeps me at the strip club literally till about 3:30 in the morning. And he's drinking, he's doing whatever. And I finally look at him. I'm like, "Dude, I'm ready to go. Like, I'm tired. I want to go home. Like, we got to go." And he's like, "All right, cool, whatever." And we had a friend of his meet up with him, and they're in the side parking lot. And he starts to walk towards me. I'm sitting in the front of my car, sitting waiting for him. It's cold as hell outside. It's like November, but it's starting to get chilly. And I see these two people outside, and they're arguing back and forth. And I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, all right, whatever. And one dude straight up punches another. And I'm like, "Oh, all right." So these two dudes are fighting in front of me, like straight up, like 10 feet in front of me. Like I can see them. They're on the sidewalk in front of my car. They're fist fighting. I'm like, "Oh, this is fucking sweet. All right. I like when people fight." Then all of a sudden, one person joins in. Then another person joins in. And I'm telling you, there's 20 people started fighting in front of me. It was like a gang fight or something. And like there's a deck on the side where the bar is, because like the bar and the strip club are two separate places. That's why the strip club, you're allowed to be 18. The name of the strip club is escaping me right now. But like there's this like porch, and then there's this dude getting slammed up against the porch, and he's getting the shit kicked out of him. And I'm like, "Yo, this is fucking rad." Like, all right. And I see my buddy, and mind you, there's like 20 people like fighting. There's not much extra space, and my buddy just has his hands in his pockets, walks by like nothing's happening, just whistling. He gets in my car and he goes, "How'd this start?" I said, "Dude, I don't know. I'm trying to get out of here." I put the car in reverse, and there's people getting punched. And as soon as I start to back out of my parking spot, this dude falls face first where my front bumper would have been. He's on his hands and knees. He's bloodied up. And I can see him starting to crawl to get back up. And all of a sudden, this dude from the side of the building is sprinting at a full fucking sprint and soccer kicks the dude in the head. Like Wanderlei Silva soccer kicks him. Knowing what I know about CTE, I feel so bad for this guy now. But soccer kicks dude, right? Knocks him the fuck out. And I look at my friend, I was like, "Motherfucker, it's time to go. I am a witness. I am I am out. I do not fit into this crowd. I will get my ass whipped." So I get out. We're driving home, and he's telling me like, "Hey, that was pretty cool, wasn't it?" And he falls asleep instantly. I'm 18. I've never been on a road trip before in my life, or I may have been on one road trip. My timestamp's messing with me. I think I may have went to Georgia before this. But the Georgia road trip wasn't as crazy as this one is. So we're on the way back. We get a flat tire at like 5 a.m. I changed the flat, and we're an hour away, and I'm tired. I went to high school that day, got off out of high school, went to this wrestling show, and we take a nap in the middle of a Menards parking lot. We wake up, and there's about 8 cops surrounding us. And we're there, like, we wake up, and they're like, "Yeah, we've been trying to wake you up for about 10 minutes now." And I was like, "Okay, you needed the whole fucking task force here?" They check my ID, they check his ID, ask us why we're sleeping in a parking lot, all this stuff. I was like, "Man, like, I didn't want to drive when I was asleep, like, let me rest. I promise I'll get out of your hair." Drive back, drop them off, and that was my first wrestling road trip. Street fight, gang fight, flat tire. Like, I feel like I got the whole experience in one night.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a very full experience. You said the Georgia one was ridiculous too?
It wasn't as crazy. Like, the craziest thing was we took 2 separate cars down. It was an AWE tryout show, Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment. And Sage Phillips was in the back in my car. And Sage is and this is a shitty thing, I'm not going to mention who did it. It's kind of shitty now I'm thinking about it. But Sage was a veterinarian at the time, and he's like really against like people throwing shit out on like trashing, like littering. That's the term.
Right. No, I completely get that.
Hates littering, right? So the car in front of us starts ribbing him and like throwing like little post-it notes outside the car, one at a time. And Gage is like fired up. Like he's like, what the fuck are they doing? Like he's getting mad. And eventually whoever's in the front of the car, like, I don't know if it was like a pack of 50 or it was a pack of 100, but like takes each individual post-it note, like crumbles it up and throws it all out at the same time. It looked like like it was raining yellow like post-it notes. It was insane. And Gage is driving and he's freaking out, cursing like, "You motherfucker, I'm gonna whip your ass!" Like, Gage was fired up. It was my favorite thing. And then, like the show, like other than that, like it was kind of a normal road trip. Like it was where it was me, Gage, and Mance Warner in the car. It was really cool, especially seeing how crazy Mance is nowadays, like how big he is. Like he's a big fucking deal now. He's like, it's awesome, like, hey, I kind of like, we came up together. He's doing all these cool things, and now I'm hopefully going to be able to catch up to him.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a dope thing when you're like not a shitty human being. Like when you're positive, when like you see people you broke in with, or spent a lot of time with, and you're like, that's fucking dope seeing them get that success. I get that with like Will Ferrara from Ring of Honor and Proud and Powerful, because I worked those guys so many times. I was on so many shows. I trained with those guys. It's fucking great to see good people bust their ass and fucking have it pay off, and it motivates you.
Absolutely, and it's like, man, you can see people that like. I think it's very important to like surround yourself with successful people, because you see where they're at and it motivates you to get to where they're at. Because like jealousy can be either really good or really bad. Like I'm jealous of my friends to where like they're doing cool shit, they're on big shows, but I'm not jealous to the point where I'm like, man, fuck them, I should be there instead of them. Like, no, like the problem is me. What am I doing wrong with myself that I'm not there? Like you have to understand, like, use shit to your advantage. Don't let jealousy be a negative. Let it be a positive. You know what? Because my friends are on those big shows, but I'm fucking happy for them. They're killing it. They're doing their thing. It's my fucking job to figure out what I'm not doing right. You know what I mean?
Right. You don't want to be like a pick-me-ass motherfucker. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, oh, I should be there too. Blah, 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 blah. No, like you should want to be, where they're at. Yes. But you should want to, get there by your own self. Like I want to make it and be like, I made it, through my work. You know what I mean?
100%. That makes, this makes perfect sense. And going about things the right way, which means that, you're trying to look out for yourself, but also you're looking out for the people that surround you, the people that support you.
Yeah, exactly. Like you got to be around people that build you up, but challenge you to be better. Like you need to be around good, positive people.
It also comes down to, I brought this up on other interviews, where like if you're only around people that put you over, you're never going to fucking learn.
Never.
Like I'd rather be a part of a crew of people that are hypercritical to the point where like they piss me off, because it's literally only a point where, I want them to, they want me to improve. I'm hypercritical of like anyone that I travel with, like to the point where like they fuck with me on it. But it's literally just me wanting these guys to improve and get to a point where they're just fucking tearing it the fuck up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm no way, shape, form, any kind of sort a veteran or a vet by any means. I'm still learning. I'm still being taught lessons. I still make plenty of fuck ups. But like I'm trying to do what Jonathan did for me, and that's like the brand new people that come in like to wrestling. Like I'm trying to take them on road trips, or like if I notice something, like because I feel like I have an understanding of the basics and everything. Like if I can help them understand something, that's great. Like I took a new kid by the name of Tyler Lytle, and I took him all the way to New Jersey and helped him let him be a part of H2O's Battle Royal. Like I helped him get on there when I got booked up there. Like I'm trying to take as many people like on the road and help them get like connections, and let them do seminars and everything else. That way we can all learn to get better.
That's fucking dope.
I think it's a responsibility thing. Like I'm no veteran, but I can help introduce them to veterans that like know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? I can put in a good word for them, and I can help like hopefully they hustle as much as I want to hustle, and they want to get to the next town as much as I do. And, it's just awesome when you surround yourself with like-minded people that want to be successful.
So we get to this part is my favorite part of the interview, because I have a theory, and that theory is that every body. I mean, obviously everybody in wrestling is out of their fucking minds. We wouldn't be in it if we weren't crazy.
We're all psychopaths.
Right.
We're all psychopaths.
But there's a charm to the first year where you meet legitimately the most ridiculous human beings you'll ever meet. So Cole Radrick, can you think back to that first year or around that time and tell us the weirdest personality, most unique, most interesting, craziest person you came across?
Jesus, that's a loaded question. Craziest person. Okay, I don't know if this counts as crazy, but like it's I want to say Mance because it's crazy to see from like how quickly Mance changed from just another guy where he was a medium-sized man beast. He wasn't the Mance Warner of today, and now he's like fucking man. Like everybody loves freaking Mance. Like Mance is super over. He can wrestle. He can wrestle anybody. He can tell a fucking story. His promos are amazing. Like it's crazy to me seeing the personality that became Mance Warner as a human being. Craziest person, like I don't know. Like that's a loaded question. I feel like Mance would be my answer though. But Mance is still like a good guy. He's not a psychopath. He's he's all there. He's mentally all there. But like he's just seeing that is what's crazy to me. I don't know if that counts as an answer. But
no, I mean like any answer is an answer that I'm willing to accept. This isn't like I think some people get the idea that I'm trying to like bury somebody who's fucked up, and it's like no, it's not even a matter of like burying somebody. Like Davian, who's a female wrestler, she's on Shimmer. Now that I had her on the show a couple weeks back, and she said that this guy Cam Zagami was the one she chose, and I love Cam, she loves Cam, but if you know Cam, he's out of his fucking mind. Like he'll have a full on conversation with himself while looking in a mirror, and just like and think nothing of it.
I respect that a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean he's a cartoon character, but it wasn't like bury somebody. It was way more like, of course, this guy is a unique personality that you can't forget.
He's a nut job, but a great human being.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it. Yeah, Mance is definitely like mine. Like Mance is such a goofy, funny guy. Like he's insane to be around. Like he's always got people cracking up. Like Mance is a man. Percy Davis, he's not crazy, but like his mannerisms, how he talks, how he acts, like Percy Davis is like the funniest guy to be around. Like if I'm around him, I'm laughing.
Yeah, Percy is wonderful.
Okay, so you know who Percy is.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Percy's like Percy. He's not crazy, but he's like absolutely hilarious. Like he's always making me laugh. He knows how to he builds people up. He's never negative. He's literally the sweet tooth superstar because he's a sweetheart.
If the person you are right now, the wrestler that you have become, could speak to 16-year-old Cole driving in that car over to that trailer and give him advice on the wrestling career, I'm sure the first thing of advice would be don't fucking go there. But besides that, what would be the advice that you would give that person just breaking in?
Understand that it sucks. Understand that it hurts. Understand that it's painful. Understand that everything, and sometimes it's going to feel like that you're the only one in the room and there's 1,000 people in there. Sometimes it's going to be, you're going to feel like an ant in a mountain. Sometimes you're going to feel like a needle in the haystack waiting to be found. Like sometimes you're going to think, you're going to second guess this, but I'm going to look at 16-year-old Cole. I'm going to look at 16-year-old Joey Hodge, who's a professional wrestling fan and grew up loving it because it was the only thing that made sense to him. I'm going to look at myself and just say, look, it's worth it. It's worth the hurt. It's worth the second guessing. It's worth the doubt. It's worth the failure. It's worth the grind. It's worth every fucking second. Because nobody will ever understand what it's like to be underneath those lights, in front of those fans, in front of those people doing the one thing that you absolutely love. So I would just tell myself to fucking go to that place, lose $500, fucking go to New Way Pro, fucking forget about the kids in the crowd, fucking watch people beat each other's ass outside of a strip club, fucking sleep in a car. Sleeping in my car is my favorite fucking thing in the world to do. If I'm on a show and I'm traveling and, you can't make it and I sleep in my car, so fucking people might think of that negatively. I think of it, it's amazing because I know it's a part of the grind, and I'm never afraid to put the work in. I've been in the darkest place in my mind where I wanted to leave wrestling. I hated it. But now I'm being able to do some cool shows. I'm doing fucking, some of the biggest indies in, the United States right now. I'm blessed. I would just tell myself everything will be worth it. Just understand that it's going to suck. And I think that's a lot about life. we hate that the things that scare us most. We don't want to do things that scare us most. We're always afraid to fail, but you will never learn to succeed unless you understand that there's always a probability of failing.
Cole, where can we find you on social media if there's anything else that you'd like to plug at the moment?
I would love to plug at Cole Radrick, literally on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram. Those are my main 2 platforms. It's literally at ColeRadrick.
You got a pro wrestling tee store people could check out? I know that at this point, everyone's trying to get that together.
I'm a real piece of shit. I don't have one, but I do have t-shirts on sale. All you have to do is drop me a DM on, either one of those sites. I have t-shirts for sale. I have buttons for sale, 8x10s. I got anything you can need for sale. So
Cole, thank you so much for joining us. I think you're well aware of the amount of respect that I have for your hustle. How many matches did you have that first year or whatever? You had posted about it and it was insane.
I think I only had 52 matches, and then the next year I had 125. I know I've officially lost count, but I know I've hit at least 750 matches, and I'm just coming into my 5th year right now.
Right, man. Like that. Then you know how much respect I've got for you. I think that's obvious. Your first 2 years you had 200 matches, which is fucking insanity. I think I had less than 20 in my first 2 years. So your hustle is beyond respectable, and it really, honestly, I think you should be the guy that everybody looks to as what is the mold of being a true motherfucking road warrior and being a fucking wrestler and getting your name out there and busting your ass. My respect for you, as high as it was, has doubled, tripled. Honestly, like this interview was dope, and it was great to hear, how your grind has brought you to where you are. So again, thank you so much for joining in.
Bro, thank you for inviting me. I was super excited to, be able to talk to you. Like, we don't get to see each other enough. I think we've seen each other like 4 times over the past 5 years, but like we've always hit it off really well. Like, you're such a cool fucking dude. I love seeing your stuff on Facebook and Twitter, and like just being able to sit down or talk over the phone during this quarantine bullshit and just talk to you has been really cool. So thank you.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's pretty crazy to me that after what is, essentially such a short time in professional wrestling, Cole has pretty much lived a lifetime in the business. It was really great to sit down and actually talk with him about breaking in. Such a great time, great stories. Please support that dude because he is absolutely fantastic. Well, before we get out of here, you should go ahead and give a follow to us on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at year1pod. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel on your preferred podcasting app and leave us a review. Year One Podcast on YouTube as well. Multiple series with new shows every single week. Shout out to Heroes for the music. You can check them out on Spotify. Shout out to Joanna Robinson for all the artwork and design. Julie Chan on all social media. Shout out to the Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore for sponsoring the show, located at the Englishtown Flea Market in Englishtown, New Jersey, and on eBay. Make sure to check them out and give their Facebook page a like for all of your wrestling merch needs. That'll be it for this episode of the Year One Wrestling Podcast. I'm Logan Black telling you, be awesome to each other. Peace and love.